Caleb's Story, Chapter 6. An excerpt from Caleb's journal. I didn't have to tell Sarah about grandfather's pills after all. It was the dogs, Lottie really, who showed her in the end, and grandfather running after Lottie all over the house. All that noise. The dogs. There was no school for the next few days. The cold was hard for the horses and children. I would have liked it any other time, staying home, but not in this house, not with Papa and Grandfather passing each other without talking, the only sounds in the house, the clicking of Sarah's needles, Cassie's chattering, Min batting a marble across the floor. 2 times I heard Sarah and Papa's voices sharp and soft at the same time, behind their closed bedroom door. Once Papa had burst out of the room, brushing past me in the hallway. He had stayed in the barn most of the day. "Why won't they talk to each other?" I whispered to Sarah. "They are stubborn, Caleb." "But they are family," I said. "I know. That's what makes it so hard." "Can't you do something? Can't you make Papa?" "Caleb," Sarah interrupted me, "your Papa has to do this himself." "I don't know, Sarah. Papa's angry. Will he hurt Grandfather?" Sarah's look changed, and she put her arms around me. "Oh, no, Caleb. They are grown-up men. They won't do that. They will talk about their differences." "Sarah?" "Yes, Caleb." "I think Grandfather is sick." Sarah looked at me closely. "Why do you say that, Caleb?" The door opened and Grandfather came into the kitchen. The dogs followed, snow on their noses. Grandfather stamped his feet, leaving snow on the rug by the door. He sat down, the dogs surrounding him. "They've adopted you, Lottie and Nick," said Sarah. "And Seal," she added as Seal jumped out of her basket and came over to Grandfather. Grandfather was out of breath. "Grandfather," Cassie came into the kitchen and leaned against Grandfather. "I drew 7 more pictures of you." She had dozens of pictures of Grandfather. Grandfather sitting, running, standing, sleeping, riding a horse. Grandfather was much larger than the horse. And Grandfather on the barn roof. "Cassie has adopted you too," said Sarah, smiling. Grandfather looked at Cassie quickly, then away again, not inviting any questions from her. He stroked Lottie and Nick. "We always had good farm dogs here." Grandfather looked surprised at his own memory, or maybe he was surprised he was talking about his memories. "What kinds of dogs did you have?" I asked. "What were their names?" Grandfather raised his eyebrows. "You'll write about this, won't you?" "Maybe." Grandfather looked at my journal on the table, then shrugged his shoulders. He leaned back in his chair. "Pal was the big one, part hound with long ears. She could jump over the tallest fences. Jacob," he stopped for a moment, "Jacob used to try to get her to jump over the cattle." "Did she jump over a cow?" asked Cassie. "Don't know that," said Grandfather. "And then there was Maudie," Grandfather went on. "She was small and black, like Lottie here." Lottie wagged her tail at the sound of her name. Maudie loved winter. She would stay out all day, even in storms. We would have to go out and find her and bring her in at night. Then we found Rags one day, out in the slough, drinking water. He had wandered from somewhere far away. He looked like a heap of rags, thin and sorry-looking, but he was the sweetest dog of them all. Grandfather looked at us, suddenly aware of the silence. "Well," he said, embarrassed, "that was a lot of talk from me." There was a small sound by the kitchen door. Lottie and Nick looked up, wagging their tails again. Papa stood there. "Was that your dog, Papa? Rags, who was sweet?" asked Cassie. Papa didn't speak. "Jacob?" asked Sarah softly. Then, as if waking from a daydream, and without a look at anyone, Papa went outside. Sarah sighed. She went to the window and looked out. Grandfather started to get up. Then he sat down hard, his face showing pain. Sarah didn't see, but I saw. He put his hand on his chest, then he took out his bottle of pills, but it dropped from his hand. Lottie, always hoping for play, picked up the bottle in her mouth and raced around the table. "Lottie, stop," said Grandfather sternly. But Lottie wanted to play. As soon as Grandfather got close to her, Lottie jumped back and raced away. Nick barked and ran after the two of them. Finally, it was Sarah who stopped Lottie. "Drop that," she said. Lottie, who loved Sarah, dropped the bottle of pills at Sarah's feet. "That is mine," said Grandfather. Sarah looked at the bottle. "What are these pills for, John?" asked Sarah. She turned the bottle around and read the label on the back. "Heart? These are for your heart?" she asked. "Where does it say that?" demanded Grandfather. "Where?" I could see the words "for heart" written on the bottle. Why couldn't Grandfather see those words too? "This is not your business," he added rudely. "Yes, it is," said Sarah carefully. "You are family. Your health is important to us." Grandfather reached out for the bottle, but Sarah moved back. "There are only a few pills left, John. We can drive to town and see Sam. He's our doctor." Grandfather's face was still and angry. "Those are my pills," he said loudly. "And you are my family," said Sarah. An excerpt from Caleb's journal. It was a contest of sorts. Sarah won, surprising Grandfather. Sarah, smaller than Grandfather, but just as fierce. Sarah won because it was decided, Sarah decided, that Grandfather would go to town in the wagon so he could see the doctor. Grandfather went upstairs, frowning. He was angry with Sarah. Grandfather was lying on his bed, Seal next to his pillow. "Grandfather, I'm resting, Caleb." "Don't be angry with Sarah, Grandfather. She shouldn't meddle in my business." "Sarah has a strong mind," I said. Grandfather made a small sound. "Before Sarah came to the prairie, Papa was sad," I said. "Sometimes he didn't talk. He didn't sing. He had been alone for a long time, except for Anna, except for me." Grandfather turned away from me, facing the window. I picked up Anna's journal. Anna wrote about that, about why Sarah made a difference in Papa's life, in our life. I read. "Sometimes Sarah dances, and she makes Papa dance too. His face shy, his smile like Caleb's smile. Sometimes, when Papa worries about the farm or the weather, Sarah takes his hand and pulls him outside. 'Come, Jacob, come walk with me,' she says. And he does. They walk the fields and the country road, Lottie and Nick following them. Once they chased each other through the rows of corn, and we could hear the sounds of their laughter." Grandfather didn't speak, but there was a sound behind me, Cassie in the doorway. "Maybe we should dance," she said, her voice small in the room. "Don't you think, Grandfather?" Still, Grandfather didn't speak. "Would that be good?" she asked. After a moment, I took Cassie's hand, and together we left Grandfather alone.